Hello everyone, welcome to part 2 of our 3v3 PvP Coromon Viability rankings. We're ranking every fully evolved Coromon with an in-depth analysis. If you haven't seen part 1, check that out in the description down below. If you're new, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button and pushing to 400 subs in the month of May. We appreciate all the support and definitely join us on that journey. And let's jump into part 2. We don't need to spend much time on Glamoth. It's S tier. I will, for those of you not familiar, it's decently fast, but its ability in Antarctic gives it, I believe it's like 50% boost in speed. It gets Sandman, it gets ice coverage, and a trapping move in frozen spikes. It gets Inner Peace for boosting, it gets Wind Blast for coverage, it gets Super Drain for coverage. I think it also gets a water type move as well. It does get a water type move, I'm blanking on the name. It's an S tier. There's not much to say. This thing is really good. Arguably one of the best, if not the best, Coromon in PvP right now. Actually, probably consensus second best in 3v3. Once 6v6 comes out, not entirely sure where it will land, but for now, 3v3, solid S tier. Make sure you have a counter for it, or bring your own, because this thing is really good. Next up is Millidont, which is interesting. Millidont is a lot like Steelix, in that it has just an astronomically high defense stat and base 359, which is just ridiculous. It also gets really good abilities in Vegetarian and Dry Wind. Dry Wind right now is not banned in ranked, but what that does is it gives, I believe it's Sand-type Coromon, a 20% boost in accuracy and evasion, and non-Sand Coromon a 20% decrease in accuracy or evasion. If I have that wrong, I'll correct it on the screen. It's an interesting Coromon. It can take basically any physical hit. Its offenses are okay. 195 is not bad. Special attacks 120, probably wouldn't use that. It's super slow, but it's just so bulky. It's a great support mon as well. Just scanning here some of its physical attacks, things like Seismic Wave, Crumble, definitely aren't bad. And looking at some of its flash skills, it gets Poison Chop, Crunch are probably the most notable ones there. It does get Epiphany, so you can boost a little bit. Probably wouldn't want to do agility training. It does get Sandman as well. So overall, it's interesting. I'm gonna put it behind these two Sand Coromon. Maybe I'll put it behind Cyberbite. That feels wrong. This feels right. I feel like these three are kind of grouped together. They're all really solid. It just depends on what you want. If you want like a mix of offense, defense, if you want more offense, if you want more defense. Actually, I'm gonna put it in the middle. I'm gonna put it toward the top. Top of B tier. I like Sandman. I like the support it gives with Sandman and Dry Wind. Really great support in 3v3. 6v6, I think it might even be better as a support Coromon. I'm struggling with this one. I'm going back and forth between here and every spot in between. Let's split it. I'll split it. Top B plus viability, but yeah, I think leave a comment. Let me know. I'm struggling with this one. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Millidont we'll put in like borderline B plus tier for now. The man, myth, and legend of Chonktoad. I'm excited to be ranking this chonky boy. Main things here is going to be its typing, its ability in humidifier, which is actually really good to have your own weather setter. It's really well rounded. Highest stat being defense in 194. HP 178, special defense 182, so it's kind of a well-rounder. Offensive stats are 142 and 151, so like nothing to write home about. In terms of some of the moves that it gets things like Precision Punch, which is cool, Flying Kick, which is not bad, Cloudburst, which is awesome, Crushing Waterfall, and then I'm actually thinking of this as more of like a support mon of sorts. It does get things like Sumo Stance, more supporting itself, Disable, Scream. It's okay. It's one of probably the better weather starters, and for that reason, I think it's like automatic B tier. It's just a decent weather starter. So we're gonna go ahead and put this probably at the end of B tier. I can't see putting a water weather starter in C tier or below. So we're gonna leave that chunky boy there and move on to Sandril. And Sandril's interesting because Sandril has an ability. It's called Wet Coat, and that increases its speed in rain, which is really cool. I can't imagine you using this over any one of the other three great sand types. Because we're gonna have a fourth sand type that's gonna be S tier. Spoiler alert. Its best stat is defense at 268. I mean, you'd probably use it over Caradune, maybe. potentially. It's probably right around where Caradune should be. Again, leave a comment if you disagree, but I don't see why you'd use this over any one of these three, even probably Caradune, or the 4th sand type that we all know is coming up. It's cool though, I like it. I've used it in Lone Squad and it's not bad. It's just there are better sand types and just better Coromon overall that you want to use. So I think like C- viability makes sense to me. Next up is Blizzian, which is interesting because I think solely because of its ice type it has some viability. Its best stat is attack at 194, it's kind of slow at 188, but otherwise well-rounded with all of its stats falling between 176 and 188 except for speed, which is 118. It doesn't really get great coverage though, so it gets a lot of ice coverage. It gets some support things like Frost Web, which is kind of cool, lowering the speed of your opponent. I mean, it's an okay counter maybe to some of the other ice types we'll see in the game. Solely because it's an ice type, I'm gonna put it here as an offensive ice type. Actually, I think I might I'll put it next to Infinix. That seems right. As an offensive ice type that's not Glamoth, it seems okay. I think it's better than things like Grim Mask and Crybeast. Definitely better than this little ice type over here. But it doesn't really set itself apart. It doesn't have great coverage. It gets things like Phantom Spike, which again, almost everything gets. It does get Whoosh, which is that a phasing move? No, so that's just an air like kind of coverage move, so that's not bad. It gets Epiphany, which is kind of cool. Agility training if you want to try to sweep. So it does get some support items, or not items, some support moves. I just think it's kind of mediocre, and even though it is an ice type, you're never going to use it over Glamoth, I don't think. And for that reason, we're going to put it in the C tier. And let's talk a little bit about Vulbrute. And it's interesting with Vulbrute because it's actually making me rethink Ashclops. So I'm looking at their stats side by side. Vulbrute has more defense, special attack, and defense. Ashclops has more attack. Ashclops is faster and has more HP. So like they're very close. I want to check Vulbrute's coverage a little bit with its best being special attack. So let's take a look at some of its special moves just really quick. So Faint Spurts is what it learns. It learns all fire type special moves. And then let's check its skill flashes because I am curious to see if it gets anything special here. It gets Dirty Snow. So its coverage isn't as good. That's its issue. I think Ashclops gets better coverage. So I'm actually going to put this in the middle of the sand types. I think it's going to be really good. I think it's really solid. Actually, I'm actually going to put it towards, I think here. I think right where Yuka Claw is makes a lot of sense. Because Vulbrute has really good stats and I think has really good staying power. But just not the coverage it needs. And I think that's kind of where Yuka Claw is. Assuming that this does not have a water proficiency move, which I don't think it does, a physical one. That's where I think we're going to put it. Is towards like B minus, just because of the coverage on it. But I do think with its typing, and I do think it has like really, like it's a good like heavy hitter. And as I'm talking about it, I actually might put it here. I think I'll put it here. It's a really good heavy hitter. I just think Ashclops with coverage will be a little bit better. And for that reason, we're going to put this B, where this is more of an A tier Coromon for 3v3 viability. I know with Purrghast, I know people like it. I know it's really cool. It has a great design. I know this. I just think in 3v3 it's not going to be as good as we would hope it to be. But I do think in 6v6 it'll be cool because there'll be more switching. Its ability is Tactical Retreat, which means you restore 25% of your HP when you return to your spinner, which is awesome. It has things like Kitty Claws, which I believe it's like, yeah, claw the target 1 to 3 times, dealing damage equal to 50% of the target's HP with each strike. So like it's a good stall breaker. And I'm looking at, did I talk about stats? If I didn't, its best stat is special with 204, and then everything is falling between 158 and 204. Pretty fast. Attack 185. I'm trying to look at its skill flash real quick just to see if we have anything. It's Crunch, Poison Chop, Ball of Darkness, Epiphany. I feel like as a ghost type, it's okay as like a breaker if something's setting up on you. But I think it's gonna be probably around here, probably around Grim Mask. And I feel like I'm like kind of packaging typings, but I feel like they have similar roles, and I'm trying to be consistent. Where like these two are like offensive-ish ghost types that are a little bit bulkier than something like Ecliptor. They have a similar role, so that makes sense to me. Kind of like C minus tier. I do think it's going to be better in 6v6, And if you have experience with it in 3v3, definitely let me know. But this is where we're going to leave it for now. Magnamire 1 has a really cool perfect color palette, but it's another Coromon that I think is going to benefit a lot more from 3v3. I think, sorry, 6v6. I think in 3v3 it doesn't hit hard enough with its base 215 is not bad at all. It's kind of slow at 117, like slow-ish. And I don't think it gets coverage, but it gets things like Electric Pound, which like allows you to lower defense of your opposing Coromon. It gets Ooze Armor, which is cool, Spark Wall. So it gets some really cool support options. It gets things like Beat Up and Splatter, good coverage, Bolt Bomb. Again, I just don't know if you'd use this over the other electric Coromon, especially in 3v3. So I'm going to put this kind of, I'd say at the end of C tier. Again, in 6v6, probably better. I just don't think you're going to use it over Rhino Buzz, Hountreon, or Toravolt. So for that reason, I'm going to put it like at C-. But can see it if you really value support in 3v3 and that becomes more prevalent. In my opinion, it's not yet. But if you are looking for a support mon and you are looking for electric support mon, probably one of the better ones. But you're probably looking for more offense, especially in 3v3. So we're going to put that at roughly C- for viability. Next up is Swampa, who has a really cool, I think this is their perfect or potent color swap. I don't think there's going to be much use for Swampa, unfortunately. We have a few more waters coming up that I think are just better. I don't know what role it really plays. It gets like the same kind of coverage. Phantom Spike, Bubble Blower. It gets Faint Spurt, Slush, which is kind of cool. Its best stat is special attack at 212, which like isn't great. We have a lot of C tiers. I'm not sure it's D tier necessarily. I'll put it here. Yeah, I'll put it here. It's another like kind of bulky, good typing like Cry Beast. So I think that makes sense. I think that makes sense to put Swampa like C-. I just think there are other like things like Chonktoad, Atlantern, things like Megalobite that you're probably just going to use over it. So we're probably going to put that in the C- tier and keep it moving. So before we get into is it Octotle? Oh, that's not how you say it. Octotle, I think is how you say it. Terrible pronunciation. I adjusted the screen so that we can see the Coromon who are coming up. This thing is interesting. I think it's really cool. So it's really fast. I guess it's like decently fast. It's 215, 214. That's fast. We'll call it fast. Special attack is 262, which is awesome and has ghost coverage. Special defense is 276, which is wild. But HP is 82, attack is 68, and defense is 64. It's a glass cannon if I've ever seen one. It's a glass cannon if I've ever seen one. We also got this mixed up. I'm gonna put this guy in the middle of B tier. I'm being biased. I think it's cool. You kind of lead with it and just like click a button, which I like. Probably with the Kato fruit. Gets Shade Walker. It gets Premonition, which is cool. Ball of Darkness. Maybe get off a Ball of Darkness into a Premonition. Potentially. It gets Toxic Cloud, Soul Swap. So it has also some support moves. Also has Artificial Light. Motivated as well is its ability, which is really cool. Motivated, when you KO a Coromon, your attack and special attack are raised. And it has Menacing. So overall, just a really cool. I think this is made for 3v3. I'm actually going to move it up above Cyberbite. Because like in my mind, this is like B+. I think it's cool. I like Ghost type too. I want it to do really well. Kind of an awkward fit. I am curious if this gets poison coverage. It gets Super Drain. That's really good. I am curious if this gets poison coverage. It gets Poison Chomp. So you could run this mixed if you wanted to. Actually, no, you can't. It gets 68 attack. Don't run this mixed. Run Super Drain instead. Run Super Drain. That'll be a lot better. But yeah, I'm gonna put this in like the B+. I guess here is technically B. But I think it's cool. Give it a try. It's fast. It hits hard. It has a cool design. I like it. Let's talk about Malavite. Not much to talk about. This one is going to the S tier. It just gets crazy coverage, and it has a cool ability. So it has base 252 attack. It has 240 special attack, special defense. HP is 160, speed's 124, nothing to write home about. But it gets Dry Wind, which is really important. And it gets just really good coverage. It gets things like Stone Fist, Transcending. Sorry, hit the mic. It gets things like Reconstruct, which is cool. And I think it also gets Splatter. You can also Flash Kill, Precision Punch. So overall, it's just really good. It gets Quicksand, it gets Epiphany, Agility Training. It's a good Coromon. It's really good. From what everyone has told me, this is like top tier, really good, best Coromon there is right now. So definitely recommend giving it a try. And let's go ahead and get into Torrebolt. So Torrebolt, I need to pull up its stats. So give me 1 second. I'm going to pull up all 3 of these, the Rhinobuzz, Hountreon, and Torrebolt, because I think they're all very, very similar. Alright, I got them all pulled up. So I was wrong. Torrebolt has the highest special attack at 248. Hountreon is 230. Rhinobuzz is 220. So I might switch. I think this is bulkier though. I'm looking at speed, 174 for Torrebolt, 197 for Hountreon, and then 102 for Rhinobuzz. HP is 134, 162, and 182. So they're very similar. Torrebolt hits a little harder and is a little bit, well, actually significantly bulkier than Hountreon. So I get it actually. Torrebolt is just a better Hountreon, which is unfortunate. I'm actually gonna put it here. Yeah, like B+, B range. It's actually a better Hountreon, I think. It's bulkier. It's a little bit, slower, but hits significantly harder, or harder enough to warrant being a viability ranking above, essentially. This is B-, this is like B+. So I apologize to all the Torrebolt fans. Torrebolt is just a better version of Hountreon, which is unfortunate for Hountreon. It actually makes me want to bring it to the C tier, because you're probably not going to use this. You may use Rhinobuzz as like a bulky electric, but likely you're not using Hountreon. That's going to just bump its viability down quite a bit, in my opinion. Next up is Daricara. I hope I said that right. And so this is from other people's opinions. I haven't used it yet, but I've heard this thing is really good. I'm looking at its stats. It has base 241, attack 161, speed 197 special defense, and it gets things like Hydro Punch, which is awesome, Flying Kick, Stone Fist, Precision Punch, Smackdown. So it gets pretty decent coverage as well. Has a really good ability. This one has Wet Coat, which is awesome. And has Amplify, so super effective attacks deal 25% to the opponent. I'm actually gonna put this A tier. I think as an offensive water type, this is gonna go into the A tier. I've heard it's really good, has a great ability in my opinion, has enough coverage to take advantage of that ability, and we need some representation up here for the water types. So Daricara will be probably A-, but definitely an A tier Coromon in this viability ranking. Next up is Lapras, aka Atlantern. Who has another astronomically high defense stat in 134. Defense stat 134, special defense 102. It's really just like a defensive tank. It gets things like Withdrawal, and it also gets Head Bash, which is like decent coverage. This one I'm actually gonna put probably behind Chonktoad as like another Bulkymon. What are some of its abilities? The Coromon is affected by any stat change. The opponent is also affected. That's kind of cool. Nurse, the Coromon takes care of a squad member restoring the full HP. That's not PvP ready. Because of its hard head, the Coromon does not suffer recoil. Hard-headed, that's pretty awesome. And shiny, when no weather is active, its body is so shiny that it reduces opponent accuracy by 1 stage. So that's kind of cool. Probably not going to use a whole lot. You're going to use things like Megalobite probably, or Daricara over this. But I don't think it's C tier. I think it has such a high defense stat. Water typing is pretty decent, and it does have heavy coverage as well. That I think we're gonna put this. Does it get poison coverage? Or foul coverage? I guess it technically gets Chomp. For what it's worth, it does get poison Chomp, which is cool. But it doesn't get too much coverage for water types. I think B- is like where it should be at. In 6v6, probably gonna be a lot better. Can set up on some things, can check multiple physical attackers. In 3v3, with things like Torrebolt running around, Glamoth, maybe not as good, but it is probably pretty decent against like Malavite, Ashclops, things like that. So I think B- is solid, and we'll get on to our next one. Orotchy is interesting because I feel like it has like decent stats, like 237 HP is great, 240 attack is great, special attack 179. Its defenses are low, and 107 and 187, and its speed's low. I just don't feel like it has like powerful enough moves. Like it gets things like Hocus Pocus, which is like okay. Hocus Pocus is not bad. It just inflicts damage on a random target, and the attack always goes last. So you have to hit one, you have to take a hit, and then you randomly attack another opponent. And it's magic, so it's gonna hit everything pretty hard. It also gets things like, what's the move called? Premonition, which is cool. Again, kind of random though. Not random, but just more like setup focused. So I feel like this is a mon where in 6v6 it'll be awesome, where it just kind of like throws some randomness into the battle for you, some RNG. I think in 6v6 though, it's definitely not as good as those two. It's probably more viable than, I don't mean to group the ghosts all together. I just do think it's more viable than these ones here. I think C- in 3v3 works. Like, if you catch your opponent off guard, you can lead with the Kato fruit and maybe get something on the switch and do some funny stuff. But I might even put this D tier, honestly. Let's have a hot take. I'm gonna hot take this to D tier. I just don't know why you would use it over these two, over Ecliptor, over this. Yeah, we'll say it's D tier. We'll say it's D tier, and let me know in the comments if I'm super wrong. Next up is Dugterra, and I say it with a heavy heart. I just don't think Dugterra is gonna be that viable in 3v3. I'm gonna pull the stats up just to see if I can convince myself. I don't think I can objectively convince myself that Dugterra is above like C-. Special attack is actually, I will convince myself. Speed's 142, attack is 230, special attack is 222. It does get Meteor Shower. I'm gonna put it here. I'm gonna put it in the middle of C tier. You're not gonna use it over these most likely. I'm gonna put it here. Let's say it's a solid C+, because I'm super biased. That's the only reason. Because I am super biased and I want Dugterra to shine. We're gonna put it in C+ viability. Megalobite, the big shark, the Coromon who should have this as their perfect because it matches them perfectly. This has got to be B+ or above for me. It just has to be. It's just in my mind, I've decided that it's going to be B+ or above. It gets things like fully rested, which is basically multi-scale. If you're at full HP, damage is reduced by 40%. It also has Vigilant, so when HP drops below 25%, your accuracy and speed increase. It has Super Sensory, so if one of your stats lowered, your most proficient stat is increased. It gets really good coverage too. It gets things like, I believe it's Head Crash, it gets Crunch. I think it gets Poison Chop too, doesn't it? Does it? Yeah, Poison Chomp as well. Really well-rounded. Its highest stat being Special Defense at 214, and then everything else being 156 or above. So really well-rounded. I'm gonna put this B+. Actually, I think here. And like, these are interchangeable. These two are interchangeable on this list. But I'm gonna go ahead and put this in B+. Blazitor is interesting. I think a little bit better than Vulbrute. It's a little bit faster, has some more coverage. It has things like Motivated, which are really awesome. So I think we're gonna put that just ahead of Vulbrute as an attacker, and actually probably move Vulbrute a little bit back. Let's break them up a little bit. Blazitor is Motivated as well, which is gonna increase your attack and special attack when you knock something out. I want to say this thing has like base like 212. I'm trying to find its wiki page real quick as I'm scrolling. I believe it's 212 speed. Yeah, 212 speed, 204 attack, 157 special attack. Probably running this physical. But I think it's okay. I think it's like B minus, give or take, viability for 3v3. Probably won't be much better in 6v6. But yeah, I think a solid mon to consider. But probably not as good as Ashclops, and a little tough with things like Malavite and things like Daricara, Megalobite running around, but that'll be something to think about and has some viability for sure. Bearealis has just enough coverage. It has just enough coverage. It gets things like Smackdown, Precision Punch, which I can't say today, Phantom Spike, which is cool. It also gets physical ice moves, but it also gets Clumsy Power, which increases the user's attack and special attack by 25%, but reduces accuracy by 10%. Its highest stat is going to be attack at 203, and everything else being 158 or above. I think it's pretty solid. I'm actually going to put it probably B+, B+ right here near Torvald. They have like a similar role, and again, has just enough coverage to be, I think, a really good offensive mon, in my opinion. I think Ice is really good. So I think B-ish, for Bearealis makes sense to me. The final starter on our list is Volcadon, which I think is really good. Vegetarian is a really good ability. When you consume a fruit, your HP you gain 30% HP recovered. Sorry, you recover 30% of your HP. That's what I want to say, which is cool. 236 special attack is really good in my opinion. With everything else, like the other starters being, this is 159 and above. I do want to check his coverage really quick for some special things. Does it get Firestorm, which is cool. And I'm curious what you can skill flash onto this. I'm doing this live if you haven't been able to tell yet. Special, it doesn't have great coverage. I think that's my issue with this, is that its coverage, from what I can see, is mostly just fire for on the special side. So although I want this to be really good, I do think this is probably going to be not as good as Vulbrute, just in terms of raw attacking power. So I'm actually going to put this B-, maybe even like C+. B-, C+, I think that's roughly where I'm going to put it. And last but not least, we have Humvee, and I like Humvee. I think it's really good. It has a great typing. It has really good speed at 184. Attack is 257. Special defense is 174. Its defense special attack are both 91 and 89, so not good at all. But it has things like Strategist, so if you move after your opponent, you have double the crit chance. You have things like Inner Fire, so it can't be frozen, which is kind of cool. But it just gets really good abilities. It gets things like Feelers, it gets Super Drain, it gets Transcending, which is cool, it gets Sandman, which is awesome. It gets Drain, Clearing Wind. So that's some really cool moves on its disposal. I think the Feelers and Precision Punch is really cool. Sandman is also awesome. And this one I'm going based off what some people have told me. So this might be completely wrong, and let me know in the comments. From what I've been told, this is really good. I haven't actually used it yet or even seen it yet. But people have been telling me that this is like a really good set to run. It's a really good Coromon. So this will be our viability tier list for 3v3 after about a month or so of playing. Let me know in the comments what you think of the list. As always, like and subscribe for more Coromon, Digimon, monster taming content. And we'll see you next time. Alright, bye everyone.